Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today, again with another video, and today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite astrology books and like do a miniature review for each of them and then tell you whether I would recommend it to you or not and what kind of and why I might recommend it to some people and not other people. So I don't have a favorite astrology book, okay, but when I first started off studying astrology, it was mainly just research on the internet, especially when it comes to zodiac signs, because there's a lot of information out there, including videos and websites that you could read from. So I never really bought a book for zodiac signs, if you know what I mean. So the first book that I actually bought was this one, The 12 Houses by Howard Sasportas. So yeah, this book basically goes through what each of the houses means in astrology and how the quadrants are being divided, and then he goes through all the planets in each of the houses, which I find to be really useful. And I like the way that Howard Sasportas writes this book, where he doesn't necessarily exaggerate too much, because a lot of astrologers do that, and he really combines different, how should I say, philosophies and concepts when he interprets each of the houses. So, you know, he includes spiritual aspects of each of the houses, practical applications of each of the houses, as well as more traditional interpretations of each of the houses in astrology as well. So yes, I would recommend this book if you want to know more about the houses in astrology. Now the second book that I actually bought was this one, which is Aspects in Astrology. It's by Sue Tompkins. Now, this is not my favorite astrology book at all, because okay, so she basically goes through each of the planets, right? And she says what they mean, and then she goes through what each of the aspects look like and what they mean, okay? And then she goes through each aspect between planets. So she talks about, for example, Sun-Mars aspects. But she doesn't say the difference between like Sun square Mars or Sun opposite Mars or Sun conjunct Mars, because it's kind of different. So I feel like she kind of glosses over that. So she really went into some pretty nice details about what each of the aspects mean, you know, the sextile, the division of the circle by 6, for example. But then she doesn't apply that when she's interpreting each of the planets in aspect to each other. So I found that, for example, you know, I have a sun opposite Pluto, so when I read it, you know, I feel like, well, what's the difference between someone who has a sun square Pluto or a sun conjunct Pluto? Do you know what I mean? So it's really cookbook. It's too cookbooky, I think. So yeah, I would have to say that the usefulness of this book is like 5 out of 10 in terms of its use. Sorry, Sue. But I did buy another book on aspects, so I'm gonna show it to you. This, if I were to choose any favorite astrology book, it would be Astrological Aspects, right here, by Dane Rudhyar. Dane Rudhyar by far is probably like my favorite astrologer out there. I love him. This one actually goes, it's a process-oriented approach to aspects. So it talks about how each of the aspects are related to each other. And I think that makes so much sense. How the conjunction is related to, you know, the sextile, and how that turns into a square, and how that turns into an inconjunction, how that turns into an opposition. So it makes sense, you know, when you look at it that way. And he gives a lot of analogies. You know, he makes comparisons of I think it's the conjunction, I'm not sure, but to a seed that's growing, and the square he compares it to like driving a car and how you have to just turn, like you have no choice when it comes to the square. And it's actually really easy to understand, and you know, there are chapters and chapters on each one aspect, and just the way that he writes it just makes so much sense. So if you were to read to really understand, if you want to really understand aspects in astrology, then this would be the book. I've also got another book by Dane Rudhyar, which I quite like, and that is The Astrology of Personality. This one right here. So this book is a combination. He goes a lot into detail in explaining how astrology works, if you're interested to know how astrology works. But the way that astrology works is very complex. Think about it like this. The whole book tells you how astrology works when it comes to your personality. So the way that astrology works is the whole book. It's so complex. You know, he goes into the occult aspect of how astrology works, the philosophical aspect of how it works, the astronomical aspect of how it works, the psychological aspect. So there's just a combination of everything, but it's all of this is under the philosophy of holism. That's what he emphasizes in the book. So it's like the philosophy of holism, and there's a bunch of other underlying factors in there. So it's quite a brain wrenching book to read. It really just messes up my brain. So I have to read like some chapters, I have to read them like twice in order for me to really understand it. It's the language he uses is quite abstract. It's not like this one, but it makes so much sense at the same time. So I also really love Stephen Arroyo, and this one is Astrology, Karma, and Transformation by Stephen Arroyo. This is an amazing book, especially when he talks about the outer planets. So Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, and how those affect us in terms of our transformation. But he also goes into how they affect you when they're in certain houses and when they are making aspects to certain planets. But he has an underlying concept of like the soul being sort of fragmented, okay? And if the soul is fragmented, then the planets function on a lower level, and then he channels. He kind of leads you into an explanation of how, from the fragmented pieces, you become integrated if you use the planets, the outer planets, in a higher functioning level. So I think, you know, it's really relatable to real life. I'm not saying it's practical, but it's really relatable, and you can see how it actually operates, these outer planets in your life. So this is a good one. Okay, another one by Stephen Arroyo that's also really good is Astrology, Psychology, and the Four Elements. So what I really like about this book is that towards the end of the book, he really goes into details, the elements. Okay, so he really, you know, he even explains what happens to someone if they have like fire and air in their chart, or like if you combine fire and earth in your chart, like if those are the two dominant ones, or like say water and earth in your chart, what kind of character you would be like. Now, however, there are a couple of things that I did not quite find to be true yet from my observations of how astrology works, and that is like how he talks about like energy is kind of everything within our body, you know, and he talks about like when he goes into relationships with other people and compatibility and things like that. He's very much focused on the elements. Okay, so yes, I think the elements are important, and your element with another person has to be compatible for you to have like good energy flowing between you when you work together with somebody. But I do find that a lot of the times, even if your energy is not even if the elements are not compatible with somebody else, it doesn't necessarily mean that your energy will necessarily be affecting each other. Because a lot of the times we project our energy out through a certain element, but it doesn't necessarily meet that person. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I feel like at the end of the day, it comes down to synastry and composite charts when we're looking at compatibility. But in this book, he kind of talks about it like the elements are the end-all be-all, which I don't think so. So those were just like astrology books, like talking about astrology in general. But in terms of planets, I love this one. This is one of my favorites as well. This is all about Neptune, the 12th house in Pisces. This is by Maurice Fernandez. So this one, whew, I mean, look at how thick the book is. It's got like 500 pages, and it's all about Neptune. All about Neptune. I mean, how much can you write about Neptune, right? So the underlying concept is that Neptune and the Pisces and the 12th house, this signature is all about taking us into a place of timelessness through transcending our illusions and uncovering truth, and then it takes us to timelessness. So he goes through, okay, for example, Cancer Pisces signature. So Cancer Pisces signature would mean that you have Neptune in Cancer, or Neptune in the 4th house, or Neptune aspect to the moon, or the moon in the 12th house. You know, so he links the signatures of Neptune together, and the theme. And I like the way that the themes are very clear, you know, for each of the signatures. For example, the theme of Cancer Neptune signature, Cancer Pisces signature, or Neptune and Moon signature would be about how to nurture other people without having them cross your boundaries. And he goes through the evolutionary process of that, from illusion all the way to the spiritual evolution. And he does it for each of the Neptune signatures. So like Cancer Pisces, Pisces Sagittarius, Pisces Capricorn, Pisces Scorpio, you know, all the 12 different possible Neptune signatures. So this is an amazing book, guys. His perspective on Neptune is, he makes Neptune clear, because Neptune is the most foggy planet, right? He makes it super clear here. I love this one. And another one that I read is The Other Planet, Pluto. This is a new book, so I just bought this one. This one is by Jeffery Wolf Green. I'm not sure if he's very famous or anything, but anyways. So I haven't really finished reading this one yet, but it goes through Pluto in all of the houses. So I did read mine. So I read Pluto in the 5th house, which is what I've got, and I find it to be very amazing. He talks a lot about the unconscious motivation of Pluto and the negative aspects of it, and how you can turn that into a positive and uncover your true potentials. So I like this one. Okay. Oh, and I've got another one. This one right here is actually very interesting. It's actually a workbook. So it's called The Shadow Dance. Ooh. The Shadow Dance, the 7th house workbook. It's by Rebeca Eigen. So, you know, because I have a lot of 7th house planets, you know, this is a useful book for me to figure out my shadow. So it's actually a workbook, okay? As you go through it, she talks, so the main theme is the shadow. Carl Jung's theory of the anima, the animus, the shadow side, all of that is the underlying concept in the book. And then she has a lot of examples of people who have done shadow work, so you can kind of really connect and get a clearer perspective of what the shadow is. And as you go through it, you know, there are places that you can make notes, and then there's like exercises that you can do, which I haven't done all of them, but so let me just show you a blank page. So there's like exercises that you can do. There's spaces where you can write your answer. So you're actually working on your shadow while you do this. And then towards the end, she's got each of the 7 houses rulers, zodiac signs that rules each of the 7 houses, and then keywords for what each of the 7, what each sign ruling the 7th house means. Where is it? Ah, okay, yeah. See, so it's like this. It's like if you have like Libra ruling your 7th house, what does that mean? If you have Gemini ruling your 7th house, for example, what does that mean? Cancer ruling your 7th house. So it's a nice workbook. It's it's really practical. I like this one. And also, if you are interested in Synastry, these are the 2 books that I've been reading, but I wouldn't say that they're excellent. I recommend them 100%. So this is by Ronald Davison, Synastry by Ronald Davison. Okay, this one is good. So he goes through each of the planets in partners' houses and planets that are making aspects to each other in the Synastry. But there's a weird thing where he uses this. He refers to the 3rd person as a man always. So when the man's Mercury is in the 6th house of his female partner's horoscope, when the man's Mercury falls in the 8th house of the female partner's horoscope, I mean, the content itself works and it makes sense and I like it, but it's just confusing when it all starts with the man. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, well, what if the woman's Mercury falls in the 6th house of her male partner's horoscope? So you have to like reverse your brain a little bit when you're reading this one. And this one is Planets in Synastry, okay, okay. Sorry guys, that was my aunt calling. She's coming over. Anyways, so yes, where were we? This one. Okay, so this one, I really love the start of the book. He explains how Synastry works really, really well and in a really, really understandable way. So that's really good. So yeah, if you want to know how exactly Synastry works, the beginning of this book is great. And then he goes on to talk about, planets in partners' houses. In both Synastry charts and the composite charts, which I think is really cool. I really like that. And he goes into the aspects as well between 2 people's planets, both in the Synastry and the composite. So it's like a really good encyclopedia of Synastry. But I do have a bit of an issue with his language use. I don't know, I find that he's a bit sarcastic. He sounds a bit sarcastic with the way that he writes some of these aspects. I'm not sure why that is. But if you can be objective when you read it and just try not to be swayed by his sarcasm too much, then this book is really good and does work for you. Oh yes, and of course, last but not least, I just recently ordered this one. Hades Moon. I think it's a really popular one, but it's yeah, Hades Moon by Judy Hall. I haven't started reading it yet, so I'm not really sure what it's all about, but it's supposed to be about Moon Pluto aspects and just Moon Scorpio or Moon in the 8th house. Moon that has to do with Hades and Scorpio. So yeah, if I finish reading this, then I might share them. When I finish reading this, I might just share them with you guys and tell you how it is. So yes. So that's it guys, those are some of the astrology books that I read, and I hope you found this video useful. And if you want to purchase any of the books, you can find them on Amazon, because I bought most of them on Amazon, though some of them might be out of stock. Not sure about that. But yeah. Have you read any of these books? If you have, what did you think of it? Leave your experiences in the comments below, and if you have read other astrology books, what are those other astrology books? Please do share them, so maybe I'll get a copy, or maybe the other people that are watching the video can get a copy of it as well. Alright, that's it for today guys. I'll see you soon. Bye!